Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone you are listening to me and you're viewing this video from. Special thanks to the organizing committee from the Swane Central Seventh Adventist Church for providing this platform for me to talk to you at this time. My name is Okoro Raymond. I'm a business intelligence analyst, and I also teach in computer department, School of Computing and Engineering Sciences, Babcock University. So I'm speaking to you from Babcock University in Nigeria. So at this time, it is a great privilege that you have chosen me to speak to you on one of the very interesting topics and themes, which we have chosen as mind warfare. And I gladly can see that the guiding text for that is Proverbs 4, verse 23, which has it that we are to guard our heart with all vigilance. Some versions will say above all else. From it, that's our mind, flows the springs of life. Interestingly, I saw one of the sub-themes that I've been asked to speak on, and that is social media and children. So I'll be talking to you on what you should know as a parent, what you should know as an adult, what the church is supposed to know about this. And of course, when you check online, you'll see several researches has been done in this area. But as a Christian developer, I would love to speak from a particular perspective, which I have been researching on, and I've been reporting my researches in several webinars, in several workshops. Okay, so the point to discuss, we will be talking about the facts. What is the statistics saying? Why does social media really matter? And we will be revealing some of the things that the Seventh Adventists should be concerned about, and why at this time it is very important that Swane Central Seventh Adventist Church is bringing this on board. We'll also be talking about the pros and cons of social media. Of course, that's usually the focus of every discussion. We want to find out that there's some benefits, that there's some disadvantages of being on social media. And of course, I'll be closing by looking at the position of the Seventh Adventist Church, the strategy that we have accepted to guide us between now and the next 5 years or thereabout. Okay, so that's what I will be talking about today. Once again, if you are just, somebody will be like, for the sake of our presentation, what exactly is social media? Social media, the definition stands definitely depending on the dynamics, depending on the environment that you're looking at it from. But technically, there are websites, there are applications that enable users, you and I, to create and share content or participate in social networking over the internet. So whether you are on a website version of it, whether you are using a mobile application version of it, the intent is to make sure there is social networking happening right there. So there are several examples, and at the same time, I will try as much as possible not to promote one particular social media platform over another. So I'm just going to be speaking generically. So, but there is a mind-boggling statistics, okay, put up by Hootsuite. You can see, as I'm speaking to you, the last report that was done in July 2020 had it that the total number of active social media users was about 3.96 billion. I'm not referring to million now. Okay, so you can see that the annual growth is like saying you have at every year 376 million joining. Okay, so the statistics there obviously is not something that anybody should ignore. And the 3.96 billion we're referring to is not those who who have maybe accounts with some of these social media platforms. These are people who are actively using the social media. Now, if we were to look at the social media users versus the total population in each of the regions, you can, I would like to concentrate on, let me just get this out. I'm in my teaching mode. All right, so you can see where we have the West African, that's 16% actively using that. In South Africa, 41% is actually using that. Of course, there are some socioeconomic factors, technical factors that can affect the penetration level of social media usage in any region that you want to study. But this gives like a spread view. The demographics are there. It's just to tell you that, hey, it is not something new. It's something that has been affecting the way we live our lives on a daily basis. Let's bring it down to South Africa. South Africa, we are saying that out of your total population, 1.8 billion young people, that's like 40% of South Africa's population is made up of young people, 24 years and below. And one of the statistics, and that I really want, that caught my attention was, as of 2019, South Africa's population increased and accounted up approximately 58.4 million. And within that, the rough estimate is 21.85 million, 19 years and younger. And if the statistics of social media users are saying it's tilted towards the young people, I think it is high time we started paying more attention as a unit. When I mean unit, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, towards this. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, could it be internet usage? Some people just go to the internet and then, oh, we just want to browse, surf, get some information and get out. But no, you can see, because of the presence of social media, you have 1.1 million increase in the number of internet users. The statistics does not lie. Okay, read. So we are having social media users right here. As of January 2020, 22 million. And I want to believe the young people you have in Tshwane Central Seventh-day Adventist Church is part of this 22 million, as we are talking about. Social media penetration in South Africa is standing at 37. That's a whopping penetration level as compared to other African countries, right? So I'm using that to tell you why you should pay attention to it, because the church is facing one of its greatest challenges. So because I teach the young people, I'm in the tech region, some of the things I want to say, I have put it as graphics. So this particular movement started way back in 2010, but I want to use this to, to be able to present to you the summary of what that challenge is all about. So it's about just very few minutes of a video. You will watch it right now, and then I will be talking to you afterwards. Happy viewing. Just follow me through. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for viewing that. I think that captures, like, summarily what I want to push to you at this time. Okay, so if you're just joining me, I'm discussing the sub-theme, social media and children. What you and I need to know about this. Okay, so from that video, you can see, like I said, most of the statistics were taken about 10 years ago. And of course, that has already tripled. But that gives you an idea what is facing the church right now. Now, to push to you, I'm bringing it down home to the statistics within Seventh-day Adventists, okay? So if you watch the summary of our statistics in December 31, 2019, you can see we were on 21.5 million. That's our church membership, total membership. And then 1 year after that, there seemed not to be a significant growth in the church. So if you compare it to what we have done in years past, there is almost, you can't say it's an upward movement. And I'm going to be discussing why and why social media is one of the things that, if we have kept cold feet about, may likely be something that has been contributing to that slow growth. You can see it here, barely adding just 200,000 thereabout. Okay, so if you compare this and then you compare this. Okay, so a study was also conducted. I think this was done in 2013 by David Trim, the one-time Director of Archives, Statistics and Research. That's for our General Conference Secretariat, right? It was observed that about 40% of the church membership was leaving, and a greater part of that 40% were young people. Although they didn't pin it exactly to the percentage, because there was an issue, because they don't know the certain report age data and all that has not been collected. But I believe by now they've started collecting that. But summarily, the young people reported the following. I have also conducted this research in my own local church. So if the IT department of Swane Central is listening, you may have to conduct this in your own local church to find out how the young people feel about that and why they are actually, what they feel about your program, the platforms you've provided and all that. One of the ones that really caught my attention is that 18% of those who left said they did not fit in. And that can just be by chance. There's a lot of factors that is coming in. That did not fit in, that needs to feel among, is one of the issues, is one of the dividends in quote that social media is going to give. And when they do not fit in the church, and they feel welcomed on social media platforms, they will go there. They will go there, and I'm just going to be sharing that with you. And one of the things you are to look out for is an intentional move for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in South Africa to understand the categories of the young people that they have. Okay, so you realize that the approach used by baby boomers, the builders, and the Generation X might have worked differently, or definitely will work differently from what the Generation Y, this is what I'm referring to. So you can see when they were born, and if you count down to from 2000 thereabout, you realize they breathe differently, just like what we saw in the video. They act differently. The leadership style they prefer, the music devices, the kind of music they listen to, the learning style, which was just actually very important. The learning style, they prefer to be interactive. They may want it like a multimodal, the issue of carrying a large textbook, Step to Christ, great controversy. No offense, I have no issues with that. We may require a little more tweaking to pass along the message. You're not watering down the message, but you may change the methodologies. For example, I'm going to be giving you an example that Christ used actually during his earthly ministry. So you see what influences them, the kind of slangs that they use, and so on and so forth. Remember that the devil is more awake now, no offense to our elderly ones, than what we faced when we were growing up. So it becomes a little bit more difficult to grow up now than what it used to be back then. So right now, we do not have generations that find it difficult to accept God. We have generations that are so bombarded with what the social makers are doing that they don't even think about God often. Okay, and if you check how they spend their time, where they spend this time, you can see a very simple statistics there. The pathfinders, the adventurers, they prefer staying on Snapchat, the Instagram, the YouTube, even the Facebook. You think you are monitoring your kids on, they are no longer there. Most of them are already moving. And right now, Facebook is one of the ones that is regarded for old people, right? Okay, so you can see that. And on average, right, the time spent using, remember I said on average, you have that has grown between 5 years. Of course, if you're looking at 2015 and 2020, that is 2 hours, 25 minutes of your time. This is like saying on average. So you've not talked about those whose business, they are not in school, they are mostly online and so on and so forth. So if somebody is going to spend an average on social media for 2 hours, of course, this is just single app. So imagine when we put everything together. All right, so that calls for some review, that calls for some strategizing, right? For the churches, of course, for the church leadership to pay more attention to that. So let me also share with you. When the church woke up and realized most of the young people have started living, right? I appreciated what I saw when the Adventist Youth Ministry Leadership curriculum made a review and started paying more attention to what they call the senior youth leadership, right? So we had this master guide, oh, that is the epic, and when you reach there, you are to be in charge of pathfinders and so on and so forth. But this new curriculum has tried as much as possible to integrate the use of technology that will bring together the natural inclination of ambassadors. Who are the ambassadors? 16 to 21, of course, the young adults, you can see 22 to 30. That age bracket was what I showed you earlier, making up most of those 40% that is living, okay? Now, I want to believe now that the church has woken up greatly. That also influenced part of the I will go framework that I will be talking about for the end of this video. So you see a whole lot that when somebody, before now, I would have said, oh, the church has not really done anything, but I know the General Conference has risen to that challenge, as I summarized way back 10 years ago in that video. Okay, so what are the positive effects? You cannot overemphasize. There is no need. I run a digital marketing outlet, and I can tell you a whole lot of amount of money that you can make over social media. Of course, if you're looking about how you're supposed to get some technical skills that can feed you and your family, of course, you can easily get that there. You can become very creative in interacting with your audiences, right? When I mean audiences, meaning whether they are physical, whether they are virtual, there's some profiling of audiences that you can do. Now, whether they are children, we are referring to children right now, or whether we're referring to adults, yes, you can be very creative on social media. Now, there is this, part of the things I also do is to work with EdTech crew, educational technology crew, to bring out software that can help teach children. Now, part of the intentional move is to do a reversal engineering on peer pressure. So you see what they call peer-based learning. So schools that have adopted the blended learning strategy, who wants people to learn peerly by making their learning platform in form of a social media. So you can also stay connected with people. If your family is way overseas, at the click of a button, you can actually just reach out to them audio-wise, text-wise, and of course, visually based. You can find that most of these young people, they want to be in a relationship, and social media intentionally is given that dividend in quote. So you can begin to see most of your young people are offering virtual empathy to one another and so on and so forth. I can go on and give you a whole lot that you can find. And of course, remember, we're just looking at this as social beings, right? When we move over to business as a whole complete different discussion. So you can have that, your kid can be introduced to several cultures and ideas. However, while we preach this, if the time you spend on social media, I believe some other authors or presenters within this forum has also mentioned that, is not monitored. When I mean monitored, if you do not guard it with all due diligence, somebody will say constant review, you'll begin to run into issues. So I'm going to be discussing those issues with you today. First off, one of the most well-known downsides of social media is the addiction that it creates. Let me highlight this. Yeah, I need to highlight that one. The addiction that it creates. Now, the reason why that addiction is because there is a part of our brain that is activated anytime we feel the need to be liked. We want what we say to be accepted, to be shared, right? So there is this craziness on the internet about how many followers you've got, how many clicks people, how many views, how many likes, and so on and so forth. So when you have people spending most of those time, now I'm not just referring to the kids, even the adults, right? You cannot stay a day when your mobile devices are not with you. It's almost as if you're ill. Okay, so when you begin to feel that way, trust me, you may have to take some, to take some tests, psychological tests, to find out if you are truly addicted. And trust me, most of the times, more than 86% of those who feel they are not addicted are actually addicted to it. Okay, so the addiction is maybe intentional, right? I'm going to discuss on how the UX, what they call user experience and user interfaces, niche or paradigm that has been used to design these things. You can see that it was made intentional to be that way. Now, the reward for, the reward circuitry, like when you do something, you want a like, you want a click, you want to share, is heightened during adolescent age. During, like what I showed you in the leadership curriculum for ambassadors, for pathfinders, for young adults, mostly it is heightened at that moment. So it is not difficult to pinpoint that, one of the reasons why they feel the church is becoming boring and then social media is becoming more interactive and more entertaining is because of that niche. Now, when the church is intentional to mimic what the social media has done, and of course, remember, that it can be studied. Those features that influence our moods can as well be used to review some of the programs that we do within the local churches, within the districts, within the conferences, and so on and so forth. So as we are social beings, we want to be valued, we want to interact, we want to connect, and so on, and that affects our daily calendar. Once you hear a click, a ping, a notification, you react. Okay, immediately. So your brain has been wired that way and is usually heightened during these certain ages that we're in. Now, children who spend more than 3 hours on social media per day are twice as likely to suffer from poor mental health. And of course, you can always say this. I love the way the IZA, Institute of Labor Economics, put up this particular finding. Okay, so you see a whole lot of that, and of course there are symptoms to always watch out, at home. And somebody will be like, oh, I don't want them to touch social media or mobile phone, no televisions. Well, I have some great news for you. That may not stop it. So far, the interactive people outside your home, they may become more curious, definitely, to find out what social media is all about. So I'm going to be sharing some of these things. Like this thing called screen relationship, because they do not communicate often with people who are real. They tend to put most of their emotion on screen relationships. So screen relationship versus real life becomes difficult to navigate, and this can actually help those who tell you, I don't like physical meetings, they just do online and so on and so forth. When you put them in a physical environment to interact with people, that becomes very difficult for them to say their mind. I have also seen that some students, when they are in class, they may find it difficult to air their view, but when they are online, they can actually type a whole lot. And you can see that as well in church gatherings. There is this phobia about missing out. It's called FOMO. When they are following somebody, like a model in quotes, usually moved by these flashy things, superficial life, and so on and so forth. The person has posted, I should be the first to comment, I should click a like, I didn't say anything, so my friends think I do not belong. That fear alone can lead to depression, right? And not just for your children. I mean, imagine what it does to an adult, not to talk about a child who is just finding it difficult to differentiate what is actually important and has value on the long run. So it becomes a thing that we need to look at. I love this one. Everybody wants to talk about me, and me, thanks to selfie, or what most people say is leading to being selfish. there is this obsession with self, narcissism, that's what it's called, all right? People want to look so good online and then they avoid reality, thanks to things like filters and some face tuning apps and so on and so forth. So that becomes an issue just because of the pressure that is mounted by social media to look so presentable. And then we begin to affect our self-esteem. This one concerns me. I get this all the time. You know, when you talk to a high school student, this, because of the way the aesthetics of social media has rewired our brain, our attention span has become smaller. All right, you know, way back then it was 8 minutes and they are done. No, now it is way smaller. Bright colors, buzzing sound. There is this aura that the clicking sound creates. And so when you want to pay attention to anything that is not wired that way, that is not designed that way, you find it very difficult to pay attention. Some will tell you, I prefer reading when there is a large music in my ear and so on and so forth. So, okay, so that's also a thing. Now, the next one, which has really become an issue in the church, is that most of our young people are bullied online, and they may not tell you about it. Some of them are being tagged in very embarrassing videos. Okay, so you see some people who are pushed into cybercrime without even knowing. They revealed some information without knowing. So you see a whole lot of that on the negative aspect. This is a big issue as I'm speaking to you. However, with all the negatives that I've mentioned, with all the cons that I've mentioned, you cannot stop social media. You know you cannot. Even a ban is not going to stop that, because these things are embedded in the fabrics of everything we do digitally. Apps, games, website, learning environment, like I have told you. So it is very hard to ban, even for your children at home. Okay, like I said, businesses are on it, right? Most times you see me talking on workshops, advising in large enterprises on how they can, you know, grow their base with WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and so on and so forth. So it is very difficult to ban. So what will the church do in such issues? How can we help ourselves? You have to be intentional with your research. You have to research and research and research and educate. Do not say, we've talked about it, it's bad for you, and that's it. No. Social media platforms, social media applications are like petrol on their own. They do not do you any harm. But the netiquette, how you act when you are on them, what you do when you're on them, can either tilt you to the positive side or to the negative side. So, like I said, it's like petrol. By itself, no harm until you put a match or fire next to it, and then boom, it goes all haywire, right? So that's exactly how these guys work. So if we can also curate that, if you can also calibrate the features, yes, social media is a great tool for evangelism. So if your research tells you how you are to use that for your church growth, the better for you. As a parent, as an adult, you must move away from technophobia. You cannot have phobia for technology, because technology has come to stay. It is not going anywhere anytime soon. And of course, part of what they call meme evangelism, right? You see our church, our general conference started reaching these young people where they are on Instagram, on Facebook, on Snapchat, and so on and so forth. You have to plan your program that is blended, right? Engage them in more real-life communication, and then social media becomes the second environment. Not social media being the first environment, and then physical becomes the second. So you will have to make sure, like as I'm speaking to you is virtually, that your young people are likely to be seated around you, and you can discuss virtually the message I'm trying to pass across. So outside what they do on social media, I'm here, you have to encourage other passions that they may have. So talk about it. Is a person interested in music? Maybe you should follow it. Is a person interested in designs and so on and so forth? You can talk about that. Get involved in what they want. It's not just about go read your book and so on and so forth. That's how our elderly ones were wired. It worked for them, but there had been a tremendous shift in things like that. Okay, so you can be involved constructively with them on social media. Yes, you can have your your daughter following you, or you follow your daughter, she posts a picture, you make a comment, to let them make sure constructively you can as well be part of their internet lives, right? Now, while we are given freedom as educators, as parents, as a church, do not make that mistake of not supervising. There is something you cannot push your trust so far. Remember, we are growing, like I told you, a lot of pressure, a lot of things have made this a little more difficult to monitor. Now, balancing between virtual friends and somebody's having 500 friends on Facebook, and in real life you have only 5, that can go a long way to affect how you view your environment. Now, the last one is concerning etiquette, what people do, what people post online, not just for kids, but for adults. I'm using that acronym THINK. You have to find out before you post it, is it true? There are some posts I see on Facebook, done by fellow Seventh-day Adventists, and at the end of the day, you realize that this was it's a deep fake, it's just a fake news and all that. Is it true? Is it going to help someone? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is always nice. So when it meets all these criteria, then you can go ahead and share. You can go ahead and put. I'm giving you an example from the General Conference, where this seminar has been put intentionally for church leadership. You can see need for specialized ministry. So you can see how the young people are using the platforms such as Instagram for evangelism. Meme emojis are being created out of steps to Christ, out of great controversy, out of messages to the young people, and so on and so forth. So you see, we also have creative youth ministry, and we have another one like digital ministry. When you go through them, you realize that God is still with the Seventh-day Adventists. So this is what I'm submitting as I'm closing. If a key factor in maintaining engagement level, remember the researches that have been done for those of them who feel they don't belong, is saying they are yearning for positive experiences and relationship with older Seventh-day Adventists, right? The members, the parents, the church leadership should ask the question, what does that look like? What would that look like if we are going to use social media where they are, to make sure they are engaged, to make sure they have a positive experiences and they can relate with the elderly ones? Okay, so that becomes a question that you have to answer with intentional research. Mind you, Christ demonstrated this because he came and he changed the methodology that were there before he came on board. People were gathering in synagogue. When Christ came, we started hearing he moved to the garden to teach. He went to the riverside. He went up the mountain. No wonder people felt he is teaching like none else. Even while he was passing down the bitter truth, he had a lot of followers following him. So imagine if Christ was in our midst today. How many followers do you think he's going to have on Facebook? How many followers do you think he's going to have on Instagram? When he wakes up in the morning, don't you think that he's going to put up his father's message on his WhatsApp status, and then a lot of viewers will come in? So if you have that working for us, and the promise in John 14:12 that greater things we are going to accomplish because he goes to the Father, then I think the opportunity is now. There was a period these scriptures were written on a tablet. Another generation came, it was written on a scroll. Another generation, which was printed papers. Now we are talking about digitization surrounding us, social media. We need to pay attention to that. Okay, so and finally, when you focus on the I Will Go strategic focus for 2020 to 2025, you and I will have a place in our great mission in the method that has been chosen. The method actually is very, very complete. I have to say that I'm very, very proud to be Seventh-day Adventist right now. We have, guided by the Bible and the Holy Spirit, Seventh-day Adventists pursue this mission through Christ living, communicating. So if communicating to the young people, they are on a platform, we have to take that message there. Okay. Also that's what I'm pushing to Suwane Central Seventh-day Adventists at this time, that God will continue to help us as we meditate, as we discipline, as we get involved with these kids, as we find a way to make sure we don't lose them, that God will continue to help us all. Thank you very much for listening to me. This is what I have for you at this time. It's a great privilege to speaking to you from here. Feel free to reach out to me via email okororaymond@ymail.com. I can also share my details through my very good friend and family, Dr. Rafiat Anokuru and Dr. Chinedu Anokuru. It's a great privilege to consider me at this time. So it's been nice speaking to you. Thank you very much and happy listening.